Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's show on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also welcome our friends from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. They got the whole production staff here because it's a very special monthly visit with Wisconsin Rapids Mayor Zach Vruwink. We're not only recording this for a later broadcast on their excellent website and also your public access channel on your cable system, but we also are doing Facebook Live, which we do a lot with our friends from Family Natural Foods. So if you're watching us on Facebook, welcome. And the mayor is here, and we're going to be taking phone calls from you on our 2600 line, but we're also going to be trying to raise some money. With that, we welcome the mayor of Wisconsin Rapids, Zach Vruwink, and he's going to explain what's happening here because it's gotten a little crazy.
Good morning, Carl. Yeah, it's kind of a change of pace for you.
Yes, it is.
Doing this live on air, but also doing it live via Facebook and the recording. I'm here with two of the Mayor's Youth Council members. One is at the phones. Harrison's out at the phones. But we got Jorian here and Caitlin. Right? I mean, get your name right.
Yeah.
Here in the studio with me to talk about Teen Fireworks. Teen Fireworks has now been rolled into the Mayor's Youth Council, and so we're here taking donations and reminding listeners that the fireworks show does come at a cost, and we're raising money for that. So we'll let them talk about that, or maybe you've got some questions.
We should mention, yes, it's quite the production because it's a pyro musical, and it involves, there's no flare, you don't see any flares, you see a lot of wiring and synchronizing of the fireworks with the music, and that don't come cheap. Right. So how much do you folks need to raise?
We have about $5,000 left to raise, and you can call in today and you can help us make that goal.
Okay, and the way you call in, you call our business line, 715-424-1300, and I believe Harrison is going to be taking your phone call and taking your pledge. And I've often said this, Your Honor, if every family that goes to the fireworks show on the 4th of July and it has such a great time, if everyone just donated, like, say, $5 or something like that, you wouldn't have this problem. I mean,
the show would be paid for, actually. That's a really easy way to break it down, definitely.
I mean, it's look at the amount of entertainment you get and the tradition it has been. So what do you... Tell the folks why you think folks should be donating to the fireworks.
I think that everyone should donate to the fireworks because it's really important to me and anyone else who loves the fireworks and loves the 4th of July.
Okay.
Well, I think it's something that every family likes to go to. It's a good family bonding experience. I grew up going to the fireworks with my family, and so I think if people donate, then we can just keep that little tradition going.
Okay. So what we need from you is to call up on our business line and give 715-424-1300 and making a pledge. You'll be talking to Harrison, who's going to be working the front desk, but in the meantime, we also have our 2600 line open because, kids, this is also the opportunity for the mayor to talk to his constituency. So we have a person who's called in, and I'm going to give them the first opportunity to talk with Mayor Vruwink, and then I have some other stuff I want to talk about with the mayor as well. Good morning. You're on the Morning Magazine.
So, gentlemen, I'll make it short and sweet. I'm very interested in knowing from the mayor Alderman Colt's suggestion and referral last night for putting the rezoning of 17th and what is that, Harrison? What is the street over there, 17th over by Avenue?
Rosecrans.
Rosecrans, yes. Back on the agenda. And procedurally, if it does not need to go into a public hearing again, and I will listen off the air, and I thank you for your show.
Okay, you're very welcome.
Thanks for the call.
Okay,
So the question pertains to the rezoning request that the county had made previously for the property at 17th and Rosecrans. Alderperson Koth, from a process standpoint, he voted against the rezoning, and the motion to renew, in effect, is to allow him to, or he wishes to change his vote. So in which case that item then will come back before the full council in July. As the caller alluded to, there is not going to be a public hearing because there's only one public hearing held for each request, and that public hearing was effectively closed the night of the Planning Commission. So it avoids the Planning Commission process because, again, the public hearing was already held, and the Planning Commission already made its recommendation, so it doesn't go in front of that group again, but will go in front of the full council then.
so this is that whole housing development, again, would be back up on the floor?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that was the rezoning from agricultural zoning to multifamily zoning.
Has there been an effort since that original vote to get the two parties together to try? I know I had the Wood County board chairman here, and he was hoping that somehow there could be a dialogue. That he thought there were some misunderstandings, and let's get everybody at the table and try and understand what is happening here, because in his view, this is a golden opportunity and it's being wasted.
Yeah, I think there certainly is. The door has been open yet for conversation. I can't speak for the developer because I think these developers have a pipeline that they're looking to fill for their construction crews and their future plans. So if you lose a rezoning request, or if the county in this case lost a rezoning request, they've got other communities that are in their list or in their short list to build developments. So I can say that my conversations to the developer have gone silent. I think they've moved on to a different market, but I can't say that because I haven't heard directly back from the developer. The city does have a housing shortage yet, and we still want to develop new housing across the city. So I can't speak for Alderman Koth entirely. I mean, he's bringing this back, and that's his wishes. But I can say that many community members have reached out to me asking what can be done with the project, and is it dead in the water? What's the next steps? So I've informed them, and I said, the council members need to hear from residents. I don't have a vote in the fight. So I think that's what's happened in the last 6 weeks since the original decision.
Because also that kind of gives you a black eye when you're trying to say on one hand, we're open for business, and then this happens. It's not. There's a PR problem.
Right.
And I think
the tax base is certainly a concern. I think to the city, if you're factoring maybe between $2 and $3 million for assessed value, you're looking at $50,000 to $75,000 in a year in taxes just to the city's taxing jurisdiction. Not to mention what would go to the state, the county, the school district, and the technical college, as well as the growth and desire for our school district to add new families to the district. With Meade School walkable from that property, whether it's single family or multifamily, we certainly want to promote a pro-business and a pro-development agenda for the city.
Let's talk about, and I would like to get your explanation, because it was brought up, and there was a good explanation from your bond expert, but the $2.1 million, over $2.1 million in bonding that was approved, what's it for, and explain what it means for the city, what it says about the city, what kind of financial position the city is in.
Yeah, you have a lot there in that question, Carl. But I'll just maybe start with, kind of on an annual basis, the city borrows money for various capital projects, and that's what cities have to do around the state because we live under levy limits, which govern how much we can raise taxes. So we have to, the alternative or the only tool the state's left municipalities is borrowing, and so you have to borrow for large capital purchases, and generally allows you to afford it over a long period of time instead of having to raise taxes a large amount in any given year. So the 2.1 million or 2,035,000, whatever the notice.
It was 2.135.
2.135. About 800,000 was for public works construction, which we generally bond $1 million a year, plus or minus, for public works construction projects. So in this case, it's High Street that's under construction right now, as well as some of the other smaller. I think 10th Ave is going to have some construction, and then there's a project on the east side that all would be financed through the borrowing note that was issued. Also, the East Riverbank bike path and the Riverbank stabilization project. So a portion of of that, about $800,000 plus or minus is funding the installation of that project. $100,000 of it going from memory, $100,000 of it went to the library for building in a replacement of the men's and women's restrooms, as well as adding a family restroom. The restroom facilities of the library are original, and the building was built in the 70s, and a lot has changed from code and other aspects. Plus, they're to their useful life, if not beyond their useful life. So replacing those, and then there's some other sidewalk projects in there. So the city annually now is starting to take a look at sidewalks that have heaved or creating tripping hazards, knowing that in certain areas and neighborhoods in the community, it's common for people to walk on their lunch hour, or obviously residents that live there to walk in the evening hours, or students to get to school. So we've begun a big initiative to look at in sections of the city, doing a small section each year in replacing sidewalks. So at least $150,000 of that goes to sidewalk replacement. So overall, it's primarily for public works construction projects that we would repay over the course of the borrowing initiative. And what does the $2 million equate to on a per thousand basis? About 13 cents per thousand. So it's really in the grand scheme of things, you think $2 million is a lot of money, and it certainly is. But when you spread it over the entire tax base of the city, which is about $1 billion in assessed value, it's about 13 cents per thousand for us property taxpayers. Yeah,
and you have to maintain stuff, or otherwise you're going to it doesn't get any better.
That's right. In our infrastructure, we know that in tight fiscal constraints that the state places on cities, there's only so much public works construction we can do in a given year, right? But you can't take a year off either in many cases, because we're already planning out that our streets are going to last 60 years, if not longer, right? We're only now replacing, and we have a finite amount of staff that our levy limits allows us to operate under. So it's fairly complex to explain, but at the end of the day, we're doing a number of public works construction projects that, one, we've got utility failures, a lot of water main breaks on those streets, the street surfacing is gone. In the case of High Street, there weren't sidewalks on there, that kids were walking in the street heading to school in the morning. When I did walking school bus a couple years ago, it's not safe for those kids to walk in the street unsupervised. Their parents, they don't have bus service, so of course they're going to walk to school unless they can get somebody to drop them off, which is not always the case.
It's about a quality of life.
That's right.
Right now, we have members of the Mayor's Youth Council here, and they want you to help out with our tradition of the biggest and best fireworks show in central Wisconsin. It's the Pyro Musical. And again, this year you'll hear the music on Y1055 FM, WLJY, synced up with the fireworks. But we need how much?
$5,000.
We need $5,000. Think about the fact that if your family goes to this show every year, how much it means for you as a family to have this entertainment on our nation's birthday. Come on. If we can all just dig in and give 5 or 10, whatever you would feel comfortable, we can do this. And the Mayor's Youth Council, you're worried about young people. These kids are willing to get involved and help raise the money. It's how. This is a big part of your 4th of July traditions in both of your families?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. What would it mean if it didn't exist?
We would definitely be a lot less celebratory on the 4th of July. We wouldn't have things to go do. I think it's just a moment that everyone looks forward to.
What about you or your family?
I think it would mean, basically nothing. We wouldn't have anything to do. We wouldn't have our barbecues like usual. It would be kind of useless,
Okay. So there you go from the Youth Council. But I want to talk about something else that I know the youth are very up on and are interested in, and it came up last night, Your Honor, the update on aquatics and the request for a grant from the Legacy Foundation. This could be a big boost to the project, correct?
No question. Yeah, this is the first year really where Legacy has put out a formal request for proposals from community projects and community organizations. Their payout is expected to be $6 million annually, so it's going to be a significant boost to the community. Obviously, the auspices of the sale of the Riverview Hospital, so all of our healthcare spend that accumulated in the coffers through the sale of that hospital have now been converted into the Legacy Foundation. So there's about a $6 million plus or minus annually that would be donated to community causes and various initiatives and efforts across the city. And the Legacy Foundation's mission is around health and well-being. Their service area is the Wisconsin Rapids area. They intend to serve causes that are accessible and available to all. So we believe the Wisconsin Rapids area pool project fits very well within their kind of intended grant service area. And so the City Council last night approved a request of the Legacy Foundation. As we've talked about on previous shows, the city had committed $5 million toward the construction of a pool, and then we still remain in fundraising mode for $4 to $4.5 million, depending on what the actual project cost comes in at. So we're going to pursue a grant of Legacy Foundation that hopefully will ultimately be matched by other donors and philanthropic entities in the community, knowing that while it's important for us to do small fundraising events, and the youth council can talk about, the youth members here can talk about what their efforts have been, but it really takes a combination of large community gifts as well as those small individual contributions that everyone can make.
And then what I was heard yesterday or last night during the discussion is that if you get this grant, that you think it would probably free up some of those other donors who are on the sideline right now. Okay, this is going to happen, and we're in. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of the way?
You need a lead gift in all capital fundraising, and I think successful projects such as the YMCA's capital campaign or others that have existed in the past, you really need a strong forward gift that's early, and then the rest of the gifts seem to come into the picture, and that certainly was the case when the Legacy Foundation and Riverview Hospital at the time stepped up with gifts to bring that project to fruition.
If you got this, I mean, you got this money starts flowing, when could we start seeing groundbreaking?
There's a potential that if Legacy were to support the project and other donors were to come into the picture yet this calendar year, let's say even by fall, that we could let the project for bids and potentially break ground in some form yet this calendar year. Mm-hmm. If that were the case, there is a potential that the project would open midsummer next year. There's, depending on construction seasons and environmental challenges with the temperatures and that, it really affects how long we can construct during the winter and the spring. So that's kind of a wild card.
What are young people saying about this project?
Well, the Mayor's Youth Council has committed to raising $250,000 as part of the fundraising. And like Mayor Vruwink said, it really depends on both small and large-scale donors. We have gone from doing small things like selling raffle tickets at Raptors games to doing larger things like reaching out to bigger companies to see if they would like to donate money. And for us, it's just something that we want to get our peers out and active in the community. We want to help them have fun during the summer, have something to do. And so I think that's why we're so passionate about it, because it's something we want as children.
Okay. And you're willing to work for it.
Right. We have
it. And they have been working. Mm-hmm. They've been working very hard. But right now, we want you to help out with the fireworks. 715-424-1300. Let's see. Harrison is in the front. We want him busy. We want him answering phones. We want him going. Like I said, if every family that's listening to this would just donate a small portion, whatever you think is appropriate for your family. How many people do we have downtown on the fireworks tonight? It's like like double the city of. There's
been crowd estimates, and they've gone from year to year, and it's obviously difficult to completely assess because a lot of folks watch it from down by the hospital or even near the airport, wherever you can get a good line of sight, right, visibility. But folks come from all over. We know that this is an event that's well attended by not only residents but also residents of neighboring communities. As far as Stevens Point, I know the mayor of Stevens Point called me when he was first elected, maybe a year ago now, and said, "Who's your vendor vendor? How much do you spend on your show? Because my residents are saying they want a show like Wisconsin Rapids puts on. So we know that event, and as you mentioned, it's the best, if not one of the best in central Wisconsin. And again, it doesn't come free, but it does bear mentioning that, Solaris and other community donors, the water and light utility, and many businesses in the community do step up to help support the show, as well as other municipalities. Wisconsin Rapids has continued to fund the fireworks in some form, dating back to 2005, I believe, when the state really cut state funding to cities, is when the city went through and pared back its contribution to fireworks. So at that point, the Teen Fireworks Committee got started. It was, I believe, my high school graduating class, if not our junior year. I ran into a classmate yesterday at the bike share ribbon cutting, and she said I was one of the first members on the Teen Fireworks Committee. So we've been around for quite a few years, in this community raising funds. So 12, 13 years that this Teen Fireworks effort has gone on. And
then, like I said, it's become, I think our two young folks here have stated it well. It's become a family tradition. Mm-hmm. For a lot of families, that's part of the Fourth. Getting together, maybe with friends and neighbors, doing a barbecue or what have you. So.
And maybe Caitlin can share how others can donate besides calling in, making a pledge.
Okay, how can
others?
Okay,
we want to keep Harrison busy, but there's other ways for people to.
Okay, and I've seen we're getting some phone calls.
Good.
You can donate at donate.wirapids.org.
And there's a PayPal link for folks to make contributions online if they wish to do so.
Okay, so we're trying to make this as easy as possible. But if you enjoy the fireworks, and that's something you look forward to every 4th of July with you and your family, come on. Let's do it. We can do it, Rapids, and the Rapids area. If you come into town and you enjoy the show, hey, like I said, think about what things can you spend money on nowadays. Mm-hmm. And this is if we spread this out, it's very affordable entertainment for the whole family.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite?
I was going to say a $5 gift goes a long way for half an hour entertainment, right? And on 4th of July.
Okay. What's your favorite fireworks?
Ooh, gosh. I like the really big, sparkly gold ones.
Okay.
I like the ones that make swirly noises.
Oh, my gosh.
See, everyone has their favorite fireworks. Mm-hmm. I like those big chrysanthemum shells that fill the sky and you go, mm-hmm. It's like virtual reality. Mm-hmm. And it's a wonderful show. But looking toward the future, Your Honor, that brings up one thing. And one of the reasons why you went with this vendor out of the Twin Cities area is their expertise on doing this, pyro musicals, also on river banks mm-hmm. and in close proximity. They know how to do so safely. With the Tribune Building project looking like it's going to be taken off pretty soon with their crowdfunding thing going on right now, are we looking at moving that onto the water at some point?
That was a consideration we looked at last year, and we'd have to acquire a barge to effectively shoot them from the river. The size of shell impacts how large that safety zone is. So the larger the shell, the larger the safety zone. So you are, as you indicated, working with some really tight constraints there with buildings that cannot be occupied during the show, with the bridge and some other areas within the safety zone that have to be separated from a crowd control perspective. So yeah, there are a lot of constraints. And if the buildings were occupied or wished to be occupied during the show, that's when you start moving that kind of epicenter and then the safety zone that wraps around it, which could require a barge at some point.
Because they're limited to, I don't think they can use a shell any larger than 2 or something.
I think it's
4 or
4, yeah.
4. Up to 4, that's the biggest.
Some larger ones previously, but
that was too much.
Yeah, you get a question of, there's been incidents around the country and even around in our area that these events, the last thing you want to do is have a safety incident.
We got to take our first break, but like I said, 715-424-1300. If you want to talk to the mayor, it's 2600. And when we come back, I want to get an update on the Triangle project and also the YMCA-Boys and Girls Club project update. And there's going to be a lot of construction going on in Wisconsin Rapids, and maybe we'll talk to the mayor about what that in itself means when you have all these construction workers building stuff in your town. It's our monthly visit with Wisconsin Rapids Mayor Zach Vruwink here on the Morning Magazine. We also welcome our friends from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media and Facebook Live to the show. Back with more when the Morning Magazine continues right after this.
Good morning and welcome back to The Morning Magazine, presented by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. It's time for part 2. Once again, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and welcome back, everybody, to today's show on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. It's also live on Facebook Live, and we're on Wisconsin Rapids Community Media is here as well. Why, you say? Well, they just wanted to put me on the camera. No. It's because it's our monthly visit with Wisconsin Rapids Mayor Zach Vruwink, and we have members of the Mayor's Youth Council here. We are raising money for fireworks, for the big fireworks show on the 4th of July. And we want you and your family to help out. We're all family here. We all enjoy the festivities. We all enjoy the big show. And if everybody would just give, like I said, if every family gave 10 or 5, whatever, we wouldn't be worried about that. But if you want to reintroduce the members of your youth council who are in the station today, and we got Harrison taking phone calls and the like, and 715-424-1300 to talk to Harrison to make a pledge.
All right, we've got Caitlin and Jorian both in the studio with me today to on air, obviously, and say hello to the camera. Since
there you go. Say hi to everybody.
Say hi to Jesse up there. But we've, as you mentioned, we've got Harrison on at the phones, and we are raising money for the fireworks show, which is put on by the Teen Fireworks Committee.
Yeah. Have you enjoyed? Have you always liked fireworks?
I have. I've gone since I was like a little kid, so it's just something I'm used to.
What about you?
I absolutely love the fireworks.
And did you I know as part of they've done education. The folks at the company have kind of shown you what's all involved with this production. Are you kind of amazed? I mean, it's almost like a rock and roll show coming into town.
Yeah.
They come in with this big truck, the soundboard and everything. Like I said, you don't see a flare during this. There's a lot of wiring, and it takes time to do all of this. It's kind of amazing for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty cool.
So the total cost for the show, I don't think we've talked about that yet,
go ahead.
Is about $18,000 for the 30 plus or minus minutes of the show. As you mentioned, it's choreographed to music, which is unique for certain shows, and not all of them are choreographed, so they time the shots of the fireworks to the music, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, and the way it works, we get a CD that we put into our system, and there's a delay on it. And we have a board op in our FM studio talking with their head person just prior to the start of the show, and they coordinate a countdown, and it all happens. Once it goes, it goes. We can't stop it. It's programmed to go, and then it's just a matter of going ooh, ah, ooh, and enjoying the show with your friends and family. So we want you to help out at 715-424-1300 if you can. Your Honor, another big project. Well, first off, why don't we go to one that will be starting soon, the YMCA-Boys and Girls Club project downtown. The big news with that, have had a very successful capital campaign. They've had some large donors step forward who are always big supporters of the city's role with this and the agreement that the city has involving this project.
Yeah, I think it was on June 1st they acknowledged and celebrated the fact that they've got a very small amount when you consider the whole project cost of $27 million. They have under $1 million or so to raise, which is really exciting for the project. So at this point, it's our understanding that they're going to be breaking ground yet sometime this summer. There's a couple of components to the project that the city has played a role in, and this doesn't differ from any other development project, but of course they have to submit a site plan, they have to comply with the zoning. They did receive a rezoning for the project to allow their uses on the site of the former Rapids Mall. So that happened late last year, and then we had a developer's agreement. So the city gifted a piece of property to them, and then they went through the site plan process. They shared their landscaping plan. I mean, all the basic development components of any project that occurs in the city. So we've approved all those pieces. The last component is what's called a developer's agreement, and there's some technical details that go along with that. But as soon as the details are worked out in terms of the lots, what lots are actually going to be reserved for other development, then we can act on it's called a CSM, or Certified Survey Map. Then we can act on our developer's agreement. The city supported it also through a pass-through grant that we applied for and were successful in receiving from the state of Wisconsin in the tune of $150,000 to help fund some of the environmental assessment and some of the demolition work of the mall. So we're really excited to obviously play a role in that project, not only through a basic routine sense, but also to help step up and gift them some property, as well as the dollars that we were able to receive from the state.
I've heard that they're looking at it like an August groundbreaking.
That sounds right.
Yeah, so that's going to be huge. And
they had to give the VA clinic notice that they were going to no longer be providing that space to them after a certain period of time, and then they'll be moving potentially to, most likely, I think it's everybody's hope that they will stay on site and then take a different portion of the property.
Yeah, I've talked to some of the folks involved with the project who say they'll actually have more room. They're hoping to have, the way the thing is being developed, that the VA clinic will actually have more room.
That's right.
A more comfortable setting for the vets. The other thing, the Triangle Project.
Yes.
We're getting closer and closer to that becoming a reality.
That's right. We had the developer in town last week, and they met with the remaining property owners that the city does not have ownership of, which would be Four Stools as well as the Giebert Law offices. And so the developer informed me they had a productive visit and conversation with those folks. So they'll be putting forward a financial pro forma, which is what developers generally share with the city. Here's how we can see this project happening in the city. Here's how much we're going to invest in construction. Here's how much we believe the assessment will be when the project is over, and then any gap financing. So will there be a need for the city to apply for state and federal resources or consider local support? We believed all along, in some form, the acquisition of that property and the clearing of the buildings is an incentive, right, to a developer. It's not a cost that directly they'd have to incur, but certainly the city wants to recoup its investment in some form. That's why the city did this to begin with. But sometimes it takes an incentive to get development like this underway. And so we're excited that Gorman and Company, who was the developer we had set kind of a fairly loose arrangement with, but we had agreed to negotiate on the property. And so we're still remaining in negotiations on it. We expect them in the next 30 to 60 days to put forth that financial pro forma, and then the city council and I and the developer will begin negotiating aspects of a developer's agreement. Should we come to some conclusion and a good point, then I think they're going to put forth the time and energy and investment in developing a rendering of what that building would look like, but not until we really understand what are we working with here, what might the terms of the sale of that property look like, at least the portion of the city owns.
Okay, but again, it's making progress. I want to talk a little bit about Cranberry Blossom Fest, especially with the kids. So they had another nice event out at Robinson Park on Saturday. But with all of these construction projects, I think it was brought to my attention by someone at one of the local hotels and also a restaurateur. Hey, this is nice. We got a lot of construction workers in town, and they're spending money.
That's right.
What's the economic impact when you have this kind of building going on in the city?
Well, we've tallied, and I've shared on a number of occasions, we've got about $100 million of investment happening in the city at this point in time, whether it's been completed in the last 6 months or it's on the horizon in the next 6. If you take a look at the airport, you've got $3 million of construction activity there right now, in addition to the project that just got completed, which was in the tune of $2 million. Hospital's doing a $25 million expansion. Mariani just completed a $15 million expansion. And not to mention the $15 to $20 million that Verso just stuck back into their mill in Wisconsin Rapids here through their cold mill outage, which is a routine maintenance outage. But they brought hundreds of contractors. In the past, they've brought north of 1,000 contractors to the city for a span of a week to 3 weeks, depending on the type of work that was done. So no question is there just a significant amount of construction activity. Obviously, Lincoln High School just celebrated the opening of the auxiliary gym. the pool. They're building the community lockers now, as well as the cafeteria remodel. I think the principal on Monday at Rotary shared there's at least $12 million of investment that's been completed, with another north of $8 million that's going on into the future. So there's a tremendous amount of activity happening, but it's all really necessary. I mean, I think there's been a period of time in our community where our public facilities, those at the school district, those at the city level, even at the county level, that, through confidence and kind of economic constraints, we decided to defer or hold off on. And now you're seeing a lot of that pent-up construction activity occur. And frankly, as the economy has rebounded, I mean, the value of property has gone up, so that's afforded, like the school district in one case, to be able to do some of their energy efficiency upgrades. And then you've got all these housing projects happening. I know just in the town of Grand Rapids, there's a lot of construction activity, but in the city, we've got 2 housing projects, the one on 16th and Pepper, which is coming along nicely, as well as the proposed project happening in the Centralia Center parking lot. So we believe that that project may break ground in September of this year. That's for 40 age-restricted, income-restricted units in the parking lot of the Centralia Center.
So when you hear or see a bunch of visiting builders, contract employees in town, be thankful. Hey, they're spending money here.
Well, and I didn't mention even the 2 infrastructure projects we have in Ben Hansen Park by the Fireman's Memorial, which is the new effluent wastewater line that actually is bored beneath the river. So they've been working on that. They should have that wrapped up, I think, in the next 6 weeks. They'll be completing that second line. We actually did run into some issues on the West Side Lift Station project. That's another related project. Those collectively are about $7 million, but you're expected to get 40 to 60 years of life out of those assets. Those facilities, the West Side Lift Station, ran into some bedrock, and so that project's been paused effectively until they come up with a plan, a very cost-effective plan to remove some of that bedrock or shift the building or another.
Are we looking at blasting, maybe?
Blasting was an option, but it's very expensive to do a lot of the blasting and removal of that material. So we've asked them to come up with a plan. In fact, we received a draft of that early this week.
Yeah, this past weekend was our big annual party. A lot of Heart of Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce, a lot of different groups, Cranberry Blossom Fest, and of course, the hottest weather we've seen in a long time. Mm-hmm. Kids to Park Day at Robinson Park was a key part of that. How did that go? You had one thing I thought was perfect planning was the squirt gun fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely for the hot weather.
Okay, so did you have a good amount of kids and families turn out? Yeah,
well, we just started doing this a few years ago, and I think every year it gains more recognition, and we see a higher attendance each year.
Okay. Is it fun to get kids out?
It is fun, and I think it's really good for, us older students to be interacting with the younger children too.
Okay. What year are you in?
I will be a senior this fall.
At Lincoln?
Yep.
Okay.
I just graduated from Lincoln High School.
Oh, okay. So, well, I graduated too. In fact, they're closing the school that I graduated from. It's the old Lincoln, 1974,
ago, right?
Yeah,
74.
1974. Pam was 75.
Oh.
Yeah. So I've seen a lot of things, and one thing I'm sensing is a recapturing of some of the excitement that I remember growing up when things were happening, and you're starting to see that. I'm going to ask these young people, and it's totally your impressions. Do you sense a better future for your generation being built or constructed? Or do you understand what's happening with all of these different projects going on?
Yeah, I think all of these projects are good for the younger generation. We're expanding and we're giving them a better place to grow up and to make their life.
You think it's a place where you can get your degree? Maybe you'll go to, I see you're wearing a Carroll University. That's where you're going to college?
Yes, I am.
Good. But after you get your degree at Carroll, you can bring your talent back home and...
Yeah, that would be great. I would love to work at the hospital with the children and seeing all different aspects growing, and know that we have all these different options to do. We have the Aquatics Center definitely coming up. We have the YMCA-Boys Girls Club. We have so many different amenities coming to Rapids that I can't wait for.
Mm-hmm. That's something we've talked about in the past, that young folks and young professionals now, they're not it used to be, well, you got to maintain a low tax rate. Now it's about, hey, what's the quality of life? Mm-hmm. In fact, I've heard it mentioned, Rick Bacoka has mentioned it. Their attitude is to, we'll move first and then we'll find a job. Mm-hmm. We find a place that we really want to live, mm-hmm. and then we'll find a job after that. That's a total different paradigm.
Yeah, much of it's driven by housing. People choose to live in a community where they can find the housing stock that supports their family and supports their lifestyle. And I think, especially as you look to young professionals that operate that way, where they move to a community first and then find a job second, is they're not as connected. They may not buy a home in terms of their first move to the community. They may buy or they may rent for a period of time before they find a home. And part of it is just feeling out a community. Is the community inclusive enough? Does it offer the same experiences that places where they came from? And I think that's a dynamic that this community hasn't faced before, particularly as we were, growing up around a large dominant industry of the pulp paper industry. And I think as a community, as the economy diversifies, we're needing a different talent pool. When you talk about Renaissance learning, we're needing software engineers, or some of the neighboring communities that employ a lot of tech capacity. We're a lot more international influence. And I think that's a dynamic that our community needs to come to terms with. That it's great that these people of diverse backgrounds and different cultures are moving to our community, but we have to support them. We have to open our arms and say this is a place that we'd like them to live.
And Mid-State Technical College is a perfect example of that with their IT programs. Now they're doing something on creating new degree programs like IT security.
Right.
Why are they doing this? Because of Renaissance and the other tech companies saying, we need professionals in these areas.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And so, right now, though, what we need is your phone call at 715-424-1300. And what we are asking is for, we don't need a large, we'd be great if we could get a lot of small donations to the teen fireworks. Mm-hmm. We need $5,000. Mm-hmm. We can do this. Everybody can donate a little bit.
Mm-hmm. If 1,000 people donated $5, we'd be covered.
Mm-hmm. It's good math, Jordan. Yeah. I like it. Carl's opening his wallet here.
Yes, I am.
I don't see any moths. That's a good thing.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you what. Here. Oh, no, I'm going to do it this way. Here's a 20.
He's going to keep it simple.
Here's a 20.
We thank you for your support.
There you go. I just did my part. That's from Pam and I. That's our family.
Okay.
So we enjoy coming and seeing the show every year. Put it to good use.
996 more.
That's right.
Okay. So there. If I can do it, I'm in radio. Mm-hmm. You can too. Mm-hmm. You can too. And so we want. These kids have been working hard on this, and we. Now, one thing that came up during the meeting, and this was something I think back when the Kmart building, the new Quick Trip was being developed, was this intersection at Lincoln and East Riverview Expressway. Are we coming to a conclusion about what's going to need to be done there now that that's a very popular location?
Right. Yeah, that was actually one of the items on the Public Works Committee this month, was to review the traffic safety analysis that was required, that Quick Trip Commission, following the development of their store. At some point, and this was, as I think I shared previously on our show, you don't do it when they open, you do it a period after they open, so that way you can kind of figure out traffic patterns and habits of customers as well as motorists. And so those options were shared with the committee last night. I know one of the improvements involves a left turn arrow when you're heading, I believe, eastbound. It isn't currently there, so sometimes you get a queuing issue where people are queuing into the travel lane.
Right.
And so the left turn arrow timing will now be adjusted at that intersection to facilitate a bit easier flow of traffic. So I know that's one of the improvements, definitely the timing of the signals. It was our understanding, and my previous understanding, there wasn't any built requirements where they're going to have to build any infrastructure at this point. But should there be a change in traffic patterns or volume, then certainly turn lanes and those types of things get installed. So, the challenge is that piece of infrastructure is built in the 70s, right? So standards and new technology in terms of new methods of building things are also here today than when we built it. So it's trying to accommodate what are the lowest cost alternatives that achieve the highest benefit, and then instituting them. And it was required through the developers agreement that the city had with Quick Trip, that Quick Trip actually had a cost share in those improvements. So it was a discussion. There wasn't any formal action last night on those improvements, but we believe in the near future those improvements will be coming to that intersection.
And when would you next construction season? This construction season?
It depends. Some of them are just traffic signals, right?
Okay,
so it's a matter of changing the controller boxes to add in a turn arrow and those and the timing. And one of the other things that we had done was assessing the whole system, the expressway system. So that W in 54 near Home Depot all the way to Bonau, we wanted to make sure that system is moving as efficiently as possible. And some of those traffic controller systems are fairly old, so we want to make sure that they're operating to peak efficiency, as well as making sure that traffic can move that system efficiently. So that's another component. It wasn't associated with action last night, but we've had consultants time those intersections and make sure that based on traffic patterns, the time that happens at each intersection is still meets the need of the traffic.
People, I think, are amazed, and I'm sure visitors are when they come into town, especially during a quote-unquote rush hour. And there's a lot of traffic on that expressway. Yeah, and it can sometimes get bumper to bumper, and that timing is critical with the lights. And people go, well, why are there lights on an expressway? It's not a freeway. It's an expressway. And people can they confuse expressway with freeway. And the Riverview Expressway is not a freeway.
Right. And it's definitely more efficient than going down on local streets, and certainly for truck traffic, it's intended to get them through town efficiently as well.
Okay. Now, we want to get as efficiently as possible more donations. So call up at 715-424-1300 and make your donation for you and your family and your neighbors and the like, and help us continue this wonderful tradition of this wonderful fireworks show here in Wisconsin Rapids. A lot of businesses have contributed, and there's a lot of individuals that have, but we need everybody. This is our party, and if you go to it every year, come on. We're not asking a whole lot of money.
That's right.
Pam and I just donated 10 each. So,
so Harrison is taking calls out there. Carl, what's the phone number again?
715-424-1300. Talk to Harrison. He's a nice fellow. and tell him, hey, our family wants to make a donation. Make a pledge. Also, you can also pledge online.
Yes. Yep. At donate.wisconsinrapids.org. WI-Rapids.
Okay. Give it again.
Donate.wirapids.org.
Okay. So
in unison, nonetheless.
I like that. That was in stereo on an AM station. We've had some incidents. You mentioned like the bedrock problem with this one project, but I know on the 8th Street there was a water main break, or
8th Street has been riddled with water main breaks, and I know motorists hate having to merge because again that's where you get some little bit of congestion issues. And in our community, we don't have a lot of traffic congestion, but when we do around construction projects, it's kind of annoying. But yeah, that system is old, and the age of a lot of that infrastructure, especially when we've got freeze thaw and frost situations, to have a water main break in the summer, or in the warmer temperatures is a bit concerning, because generally you have those things in the wintertime when you've got frost and other pressures on that pipe system. But we've had a number of water main breaks on 8th Street, and it's incumbent upon us to start sharing the costs incurred to have to repair those things, and obviously disruption to the community with the DOT, because it carries a number of state highways. That would be they would have a cost share in the replacement of 8th Street, and we've talked about that a bit on our show and in previous shows. It's not on the DOT's long-range plan right now. The first level of treatment, as we'd understand, is an actual asphalt overlay.
Okay.
So A Street would get a new surface, but the underground infrastructure isn't affected, right? We just talked about the water main break. Well, you have a water main break after you put a new layer of asphalt down, you're tearing up the street again. So we really desperately need a long-term solution for 8th Street. I know many of our community members agree, and the state's going to have to step up, but if they don't have the money to repair and replace the current system that the state has, it's going to be tough to get new infrastructure added to the list.
And this just adds to the demand for an overall long-term transportation plan for the state.
That's right.
Which, they keep kicking the can down the road, and this is what happens.
It's election year, and I know it's incumbent upon all of us citizens to talk to our gubernatorial candidates to say, what are you doing about transportation, or what have you done, and what can you do better into the future? I think that's what I'm looking forward to when we meet with various gubernatorial candidates that come to the city anyway.
Okay. Now, how's the trail? You mentioned the trail work. Everyone has seen the work going on.
It's pretty dramatic if you look at Demetz Park, isn't it?
Yeah. So how is that?
A lot of infrastructure work. We had some new sewer lines that needed to be replaced down there. So while we're doing the trail project and the riverbank stabilization by adding riprap and the new underbridge connection, there's also a lot of infrastructure work that needed to be cleaned up in that park due to age and obviously other environmental factors. You're in a very high water table situation in Demetz Park in most places. So that work will be completed in the next couple of weeks. Fortunately, the flooding event the high waters is dissipating already. It crested earlier this morning.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that.
They'll be able to get back to work in some of those, river edge areas. So that project is going well. One other project that was discussed and approved by the city council last night is the city's going to be getting new entrance signs.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that.
3 of the entrance locations, so 54, 34, and 13, and the entrance sign by the Fireman's Memorial coming in on 54, will all have new entrance signs, and so it's a cost share between the city, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, as well as the leadership project the chamber held that helped design, and so at least 2 of them will be lit, so there'll be nice signs at night, but they'll provide a renewed, I think, message to our visitors and they're coming to the city. The signs that are there today, actually the one at Ben Hansen broke in half. It rotted in half earlier this year, and so we had to take it down, but so we're excited about replacing those signs and getting a new image out there.
Let me talk about image as we wrap things up this morning. I was talking to a visitor during Cranberry Blossom Fest, and they were going, boy, there's a lot going on in this town. You guys got something going on here. Stop the whining. People from outside are pretty impressed to see all the activity going on, and let's just all work together. Be patient. It takes time. Projects take time, and we'll get through it.
Yeah,
we'll
take a long time.
It's going to take
beyond my patience level sometimes.
I know.
But definitely, we've got visitors. This is the time of year where site selectors come through communities looking for to do various projects. I mean, let's just put that out there. Whether it's industrial park development or housing projects, developers and site selectors are already building their pipeline for subsequent years. So it's really important, when faced with a conversation with an out-of-towner, so to speak, is we're ambassadors, right? We're speaking positively about the community. You may not like me, you may not like the job that the city or the administration is doing, but you have to love the city. And I think at the end of the day, we need to support this community because industry and business executives that are and site selectors are looking for communities. They want to hear, they're going to pop into the coffee shop, they're going to have lunch at a restaurant. So we have to watch what we say and put our best foot forward.
Thank you all for being here this morning, and thank you to Jesse and also Facebook Live for being part of this edition of the Morning Magazine.